Hey, here's a short video on, it's a hip and leg bone movement in tabletop in hands and knees. So what you're going to do is you're going to start with being in hands and knees. And we're going to start, this is my right hip. You're going to start with shifting the right hip out to the side. You're going to hold it there. Hold the right hip as you're here, so you can see that. My right hip stays shifted. My toes are curled under right now. You can't really see them. You can have your toes flat, feet flat if you like. Keep your hip shifted. Send your pelvis backwards. Exhale. You should get a really nice stretch along the low back into that hip, somewhere into that hip. Inhale, come back up. So you're keeping that hip shifted. So my pelvis is tipped, right? So if my pelvis was straight, it'd be here, going straight back. I'm not doing that. I'm keeping my hip tipped. Exhale to go backwards. Okay, inhale forward. You might feel this not in the right hip, but on the left side of the low back, possibly. Lots of different places where you might feel this. And you can do this 3 to 5 times. Keep that hip shifted. Come back up. Okay, so the next part, that's step 1. Step 2 is you're going to shift your hip up, out. So my pelvis is at an angle. Right hip is shifted. You're going to take that right leg. I've got my right leg and I'm going to turn it out, but I'm not going to change the position of my pelvis. I'm going to keep it shifted out. I'm just turning my right shin outward. So there's a lot of internal rotation happening in the femur, and you might not have that much, which is fine. It might be that you have just a little bit. So your foot goes out to the degree that feels okay for you, where you can still keep your hip shifted out to the right. And then from here, so now I'm still in this tabletop position. My hip is shifted out to the right. I'm going to send it backwards. Right, so from the front, this is how it looks. Shift the hip out. Foot goes out. Send the pelvis backwards. Okay, so now I'm exhaling. I'm keeping my pelvis shifted. I'm feeling a lot on the inner left groin for me and the left hip. Okay, you might feel it on the right. You might feel it on the left. It's all good. So keep that hip shifted. So as you come forward and back, try not to come out of that shift. Try to keep that shift happening. So we're just really working the relationship of the pelvis on the leg bones in different positions, leg positions relative to the pelvis. Okay, come forward, coming back to center. This time you're going to, the third option, shift the hip out. Turn your leg, right leg now comes into inward. So now we're going into external rotation. The first one going out, the leg was in internal rotation. I'm talking about the femur. Internally rotating, the femur is now externally rotating, going outward. Pelvis is shifted, and you're going to send the pelvis backward. Exhale. Inhale, come back up. You might really feel this in that right glute. And you might feel it in different areas. So remember to not move into pain. Just keep going even if you feel a discomfort, it's not bad, but you don't want to feel anything more than what you already had when you started. So no more tension than what you've already started with. Send the pelvis backwards. 3 to 5 times breathe. Exhale as you send it back. Inhale to come back up. Okay. Fourth option, same side. You can take that right leg, bring it forward. Cross it to whatever degree feels okay for you. So now we're in a lot of internal rotation, different position with that leg, and you're going to try to shift your hip out. You might not get very much shift or anything at all. You might really feel it in the left side of your back, and if it's pinching or pulling or doing anything uncomfortable, you're going to shift out of it. This might be enough just to put the leg here. And maybe you just start there. Maybe there is no backward sending of the pelvis in this motion. As you're going backward, I still want you to think about drive that right hip back only to the degree that it feels okay in your back, in your hips, in your pelvis, in the groin, in the legs. So it might just be that you start here. Focus on your breathing. Maybe you just shift the hip out to the right, pelvis out to the left, right? Into the left hip, into the right hip, right? Maybe there isn't very much movement backwards for you. It's going to be very intense. So always go with the degree that feels okay. You're inviting the body to release. You're not forcing it to release. You want to just let it gradually work towards releasing, okay? When you're done that side, you're going to pause, come on up to standing, take a walk around. So come up to standing, and then feel what's different in that leg compared to the other side, okay? Then we're going to come to the left side, and we're going to repeat that. This is a really great movement for getting that whole hip joint kind of woken up and stretched out or moving, and it's a good prep for before you go for a walk or after, coming back after. All right, so left hip, I'm going to shift out to the left, and I'm going to send my pelvis backward. Exhale. Play with the degree that feels okay for you. You're still keeping that left hip out. Come back up. So I'm shifted in the pelvis, really not so much in the legs, right? So I can be here and shift into my left hip. I could push more out to the left if I wanted. So you decide where you're at, right? So it's shift the pelvis out, send it backward. Exhale. Inhale, come up. 3 to 5 times. You might really feel that left glute working, left hamstring. You might feel it on that right side. Breathe. Exhale, send it back. Okay, coming back up. Second step, shift the hip. Turn that left leg outward so you're sending that femur into internal rotation. You decide how far it goes or not. Okay, hip stays out. Send the pelvis backwards. Exhale. Inhale, come back up. Exhale back. Remember not to move into pain. Stay focused on your breathing. Come back up. 3 to 5 times. You decide. You can pause the recording, do as many or as few as you want. It's not about quantity. It's about quality. What do you feel? And if you're feeling pain anywhere, you need to stop or adjust what you're doing. There should be no increase in pain. Okay, come back up. Next one, shift the hip out. Internally rotate that leg. Maybe your ankles, maybe your left one is underneath your right. Maybe it's on top, doesn't really matter. It's just going to be a little bit different experience. Keep that hip shifted. Send the pelvis backwards. Exhale. Inhale. Really feel that left glute and hamstring working for me, but you might feel it differently. And today is going to be different than the next time that you come to this movement. One more. Send the pelvis backwards. Come back up. Okay. And then the last one is you're going to bring that leg forward in front of your other one. You can decide how much you want it to cross or not cross. Think about sending that pelvis out to the left. Maybe it doesn't move very much at all. Maybe you just start with shifting the pelvis right to left. Okay, and breathe. Notice if you're gripping through the chest or the throat or the shoulders, try to let it go. Then if it's available, shift your pelvis out. Try sending it backwards. It's not going to be a huge movement compared to the first ones. It's going to be more intense though. Breathe. Okay, one more. You can just stay there, breathe, hold it out to the side, come back up, and then let that go. Maybe you want to end with do a bit of a child's pose, which would be really nice for stretching through both hips. And then come on up to standing again, take a little walk around. Take your time to move. And if you practice this every couple of days, you're going to really notice a shift in the pelvis and the hips. And it should start to become a little bit more flexible, a little bit more mobile and stronger. When you have flexibility and mobility combined with strength, you have a really great working joint and body part. So have fun exploring that, and just reach out if you have questions.